The middle of August 2025, it's time for the monthly market update. Last week, mortgage interest rates took a little bit of a mini dive. Did you miss it? I'll show you where it was. And hopefully, it'll be back soon. Hi folks, welcome back to the channel. With the monthly market update, you know the first thing I do is check the mortgage rates, and I teased that a little bit at the beginning. Then we're going to look at some national numbers. Which city do you think had the highest price increase in homes last month? And then we're going to focus on Phoenix itself. So if you're looking to move to Phoenix or Arizona in general, I can give you the information about what's happening in our marketplace and where the opportunities are. First up, as always, is Mortgage News Daily. Here we see the 30-year fixed mortgage rate from July 15th till August 8th. Why did I pick that period? Because July 15th, we hit a high of 6.85%. But by August 8th, just a few days ago, we bottomed out at 6.55%. That's a 30 basis points reduction. Good news if you're looking to get into the market and you're thinking about it, and sometimes you really got to be on time to hit it. This was the best rate we had back in September of 2024. But then we dropped again a little bit in December. We see a dip again here in April, a mini dip here in June, and then July we see another dip. We move over to FHA, we see the same thing. We see this drop in FHA rates as calculated by Mortgage News Daily at 6.12%, almost hitting that magic 6% number where a lot more people are going to be in the marketplace. So how do those interest rates affect what you're doing right now? Let's look nationally at both Zillow and REDFIN to find out what's been happening. Now, their data is only up till June, but it'll give us a good indication for this year, what's happening so far. So the information provided will be updated up till July 5th of this year. You can see over the past where we had a strong seller's market through 2022, then right about here, interest rates went up. And you can see that start to decline all the way through today's market, which they consider neutral nationally. Phoenix is a little different, and we'll get into that in a bit. But they also do provide these heat maps to show you a buyer's market, neutral seller, and a strong seller's market. So if you live in one of these cities in this area, and again, links will be in the description for all of these, so you can check out your city, find out what your market is like. Buyer's markets down here, this is where we had big expansion, particularly post-COVID. People moved to Florida and Texas, mostly moving from New York to Florida and California to Texas. With the amount of homes built in those areas, sellers are having a little bit of a tough time moving those homes. Meanwhile, in the Northeast, particularly Rochester, New York, we can see a strong seller's market. Even over here in San Francisco, it's a strong seller's market. As of June, we saw a typical home value at $367 nationally. Rent typically is over $2,000. Over 1,360,000 active listings compared to the pre-pandemic, which had 1.7 million. And then sales are also down pre-pandemic from 473 down to 344 today. Monthly affordability for new movers since 2020 through 2022, we had a steep increase in prices, and those prices haven't really come down significantly, although we do have some ups and downs in this current market. Moving over to Redfin, we can make a comparison between the last 5 years of what's gone on in real estate. And you can see for the last 3 years, been pretty consistent. 2022, of course, was the explosion of sales in the housing market. So this chart is interesting because it shows existing home sales over the years. And we can look back from 2013 all the way through 2019. You remember that every year, new households are formed and more people need homes. All the way up through 2019, these were at about 5 to 5.5 million existing home sales per year. Then we had this drop off as the pandemic was starting to take hold and home sales shot through the roof, hitting almost 7 million in 1 year. Since then, with the increased interest rates, we are now at below 4.2 million homes sold per year, even though more households are created each year. So if I go back to the Zillow heat map for just a minute, can you guess which city had the highest increase year over year in home prices? Put it in the comments. See if you get it right before I give you the answer in about. And the answer to the quiz is Cleveland. That's right. Look at Cleveland, Ohio, leading in home price increases with a 14.1% year-over-year growth in July. Now, it's football season, and I'm from Pittsburgh, so I have no idea why anybody would want to move to Cleveland. But if you know, leave it in the comments. Let me know. Actually, I know why. Cleveland's median home price went up 8% last year, but that only brought it up to $270,000, which is far below the $367,000 median for the nation. That area is affectionately known as the Rust Belt. Cities began their own renaissance, and young people are moving back into these cities. All right, so that's the national rundown, but what's going on in Phoenix? Let's take a look at what's happening using ARMList, the Arizona Regional Multiple Listing Service, and Rapid Stats. We can go to Market Stats and take a look at Maricopa County and what's going on in the region. This data is updated as of midnight, August 12th. We'll see that new listings are at 5,923, new ones coming on the market, and that's down 4.7% from last month. It's down 31.8 from 6 months ago. So a pretty significant drop in new listings coming onto the market. Some people are just fed up with the market and they don't think they're going to get the price they want. And so the listings are starting to slow down quite a bit. Our active listings at 17,123 for 27 cities in Maricopa County that I service are down 7%. July and August, things tend to slow down from the spring selling season. So this is not out of the ordinary. We do see it down 7% from June, but 12 months prior, it's up 37%. Average days on market continue to climb. Up 5% from last month, 6.5% 3 months ago, but up 24.6% 12 months ago when this was in the 60s. Now we're in the 80s. Overwhelmingly, these are normal sales, not new builds. We see this dip in pricing. Now notice back in July of 2024, we saw a dip in pricing as well. And in 2023, where we're coming off a dip in pricing. Why is that? I explained this in the last video. In the summertime, we see a lot of the multi-million-dollar homes coming off the market, and so it's going to impact these average and median prices per square foot. Some people say, oh no, the market's crashing. No, it's just that the big, expensive homes come off the market in the summertime pretty frequently. Most important statistic is always sold listings, and what the median price per square foot is doing for sold listings. We're down at 260, which we were back in December of 2023. We're about that range. So we do see a decline in median price per square foot. One thing I'd like to show you, just to emphasize this point a little bit, I'm going to reduce the parameters just to sort of the meat of the market, where most of these single family homes sell. And again, there's no condos in this. Condos are a whole different animal. You notice that when I took out the very inexpensive and the very expensive homes, we actually saw an upswing in median price per square foot. Whereas for the entire market, we saw it going downward. This is where the action is. So you're going to get a little bit of competition in the meat of the market. And so prices can go up in Phoenix, Arizona, believe it or not. And here's another interesting statistic from average sold to list price and original price. So what's the difference between the list price and the original price? Original price is when it entered the MLS, what it was priced at. The list price is what they might have changed that price to, lowering it to try to get more action on the home. When they finally priced it right to get action, people were getting 98.4% of that list price. The idea is look at the market, have an agent who understands the market and can price that right for you to get the most action initially, rather than going through several rounds of lowering the price in order to attract buyers. We'll see the same thing in the median sold to list, median sold to original. Here, people are getting 99% of their list price, but they're getting 96.6% of their original price. So again, right pricing is important. What is the market temperature? This gauge shows us we have high inventory. It was pegged out a couple of months ago, almost at 100% on inventory, but we do see we have a lot of seasonal active listing supply compared to 23 and 24. But what's demand like? Again, a couple of months ago, this was closer to 0% demand. It was pretty low, but it's edging up just a little bit. Consumer confidence in housing just went up again. So people are seeing the possibility of rates dropping enough and reduction in prices on homes where affordability might start to be attainable for a lot more people. So those are the numbers for Phoenix, but what's really going on in the marketplace? An easy way to find out what's going on in any residential marketplace is to look at new builders. New builders really run the marketplace. They're the only ones who can add capacity, add supply. And you think, well, we got enough supply right now. Why would they add anything? Well, maybe builders know something. Builders have to forecast several years out in order to make sure that they're building enough homes and that they can make money in those homes. So let's take a look at a couple headlines. Builders set to open new Arizona communities amid softening housing market. So why would they be building in a softening market? David Weekley Homes and Fulton Homes are starting to build new plans, one of them in the far West Valley, and that is the Enclave Homes near the White Tank Mountains. Where's this located at? Enclave is right in between Sadea and Verrado. Just in the shadow of the White Tank Mountains, that make it so picturesque to live out here in the West Valley. Let's look at Century Homes. They're building their first model in a massive, what they call a massive Teravalis development. Teravalis is going to be located on what used to be called Douglas Ranch. Teravalis is on the other side of the White Tanks. Here is Verado. Here is where Fulton Homes is building. And on the other side of the mountain is Teravalis. This is in the early stages. Probably not going to have many spec homes for a little while. Builders aren't just building new homes. They're also building rent-controlled homes for people who don't have as much money as you need to live in Phoenix sometimes, and apartments. Some of them are regular apartments, but there's also luxury apartments. So what do the builders know that we don't know? What are they thinking about the future, 1 or 2 years out? Which is what the time it's going to take for them to build out these areas. They certainly seem to think interest rates are going to come down and people are going to re-enter the marketplace, and they're planning for that now. So in all, the future looks pretty bright right here in Phoenix, Arizona, with all the employers coming here, high-tech jobs that pay exceptional salaries, and builders looking to build. Phoenix over the next few years is probably going to get pretty busy. If you're interested in finding a home in Phoenix, if you're here already, or if you're out of state and you're just looking for a place to move to, even for retirement, leave me a comment, send me a message, give me a call. If you're in the area, we'll go out and have a coffee. Thanks for stopping by. It's time again for the monthly market update. Last week, mortgage interest rates dropped pretty. Time again for the monthly market update. Last week,